What's going on, everyone? Tanner Poppitt here, Madrost and Poppitt's Corner. Just reminding you guys that for the first time ever, Madrost's sophomore album, Into the Aquatic Sector, is now being reissued for the first time on a 2 CD set and vinyl LP. Now, with the CD set, will include a live bonus disc, a live soundboard recording entitled Live Aquatic from that specific era of the band's career. Available now only at NoLifeTomatoRecords.com. What was that link again? Oh, yeah, NoLifeTomatoRecords.com. Now, let's check out the episode you came to see. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Poppitt's Corner. This is going to be a really strange and unique episode, as always, but for me personally, I have no idea where this is going to actually lead to. And Steve had this idea, and I want to obviously Mr. Albert Gonzales and Steve Gaines of Anger's Art and a bunch of other killer projects. Gentlemen, thanks so much again for joining me on this. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have. So
thank you for the invite.
Sure.
So, Steve, why don't you take it away and just indulge the listenership here? What's going on today?
Sure. Okay. Well, like we were saying as we were in the pre-roll here, one of the things that never really seems to get talked about amongst players, amongst guitar players, amongst songwriters, amongst whatever, is what actually inspires you to play. But I'll sit and watch guitar player interviews all day long. It just, I want to hear one little nugget of what they're trying, what inspires them, what makes them do their thing. So as opposed to, hey, when is your band going to release an album? When is your next gig? What's your next merchandise going to look like? It's like, what about me? What about what makes you tick? What about what makes you wake up in the morning and want to pick up your guitar and play? Something like that. And the first person that came to mind was you, Tanner, because you're, in addition to doing your show, you're also the main man for Madrost. You're a singer and a guitar player. And I thought that it might go somewhere. So uncharted waters, here we go.
Sure, man. Well, so let me ask you right off the bat, because I'm hoping this will be part of your I don't know, what you were thinking on this episode is, like, let's just take a song, let's just take one of you guys' tracks or whatever, and I would just love to hear the reasons for your note choices, because I've always been
There we go. Yes, now we're talking.
I've always been interested in just like how people choose the notes for the solos, especially because obviously the solo is almost like a vocal pattern, except it's not the vocals. It's another section on a lead section. So for you, when you're constructing solos, and let's go around the table here, and we'll start with Albert on this. Is when you're constructing solos and whatnot, what are the note choices that you're kind of trying or using, and the phrasing, especially because I don't think a lot of people understand what phrasing is when it comes to guitar solos and whatnot. So Albert, why don't you start us off here?
Well, for me personally, when it comes to solo, well, this last album, to be honest, it was I went in there unprepared. I was all like, let's just see what happens. And to be honest, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the freedom. I enjoyed I love the participation of the other members. They were all like, "Hey, keep that. That's a good one," or, "Hey, why don't you try doing this?" And it was really, it was. I'm going to be honest. That's the way I'm going to fly from now on. I'm just going to go in there and just like whatever happens, happens. It's a spur of the moment. It's that moment in time, and whatever happens, it's going to be on there, and I'll keep it. And yeah, and as far as like picking note choices and stuff, it varies because again, it's what's the riff underneath, what's the drums, what's the groove, we can say, well, we want to use this certain scale, but is it going to work? Would you want to play that over this groove, over this chord progression? So to be honest, it's all about whatever I'm playing over. That's going to dictate how I'm going to play, what I'm going to play. And then again, how am I feeling that day? That's another thing. I don't want to. You can be a musician that's going to sit there for 2.5 days working on a solo, and try to get everything perfect. But then I don't know. That's just not me. And plus, yeah, it's how I feel at that time.
Steve, go ahead real quick, because I have a follow-up question to what Albert's saying. So.
You want me to give my opinion or follow up to what he said?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. For me, it's funny because I don't think like a lead guitar player. I mean, I'm still a recovering bass player. If you look real close at the way I play, so it's very rare that I will actually. But typically, I'll hear a solo before it happens. If there'll typically be a solo that I hear that pops in my head, and then I'll fight for it. It's like, okay, I really want to do this one. Otherwise, I'll pass and I'll just say, somebody's got to have a better handle than I do. Things that I look for, and I think part of the reason why I became such a fan of a guy like, say, Glenn Tipton, for example, was the melodic sing along stuff. Um, I could think of the solo for the Ripper, for example. Da 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 da. It's so sing along, and that's something that carries you into. I don't know how many, if anybody here is really a Kiss fan at all, but they talk about how Ace, back in the early days, you could sing every one of those solos, and you would remember the solos like they were a piece of melody. That's what um, would inspire me to do that. But again, it has everything to do with the riff. It has everything to do with the song, with the mood that's being set, and where it takes you. What do you hear? Is it something that more voices can be put on top of? Does that make sense? Something like
Sure.
that. Okay.
Sure. Going off of this point, because I think because I play in a more extreme metal style band, a more technical kind of band, so there's all these notes just flying everywhere. Like, so you're having to compete with what the drums are doing, especially because if the drums are doing blast beats, there's not really a lot of room to be doing like a very chaotic solo. If I may be just so blunt about it, some solos call for it, some kind of melodies underneath kind of call for it, the riffs and whatnot. But I've always found with, especially if I can only take, I'm just going to take the blast beat kind of riff, for example, when I'm kind of doing the solo for it. First of all, I have nothing planned. So when I do a solo, I'm kind of just piecing stuff together and seeing what actually is going to work with that specific riff in question. So obviously there's no vocals yet. There's no solo yet. So um what I'm kind of looking for is like, okay, well, if it's like very chaotic, how is this solo going to stand out? And a lot of the times I like using like quarter notes and whole notes and things like that rather than straight 16th notes, because I think it gets lost in the mix. Sometimes
It's the
obviously you have.
contrast. It's the
Mhm.
Yeah.
contrast of what you're laying on top of the blast beat. Like you said, a quarter note, eighth notes, throw in octaves, a nice octave line. That I think that's the best. Those are the more memorable because
Sure.
the contrast is so intense that your line is just gonna pop out.
Right, and
You
that's
know.
what you want as the solo. That's what, to
Yes.
me, that's what my goal is as a soloist or as a lead player, and especially it's the same thing with vocals in my opinion. What's gonna like hook that specific person into it? And like Steve was saying earlier, he was hard, the solos he still remembers, right? Like the Ripper he was singing and all this stuff. So it's like, how are you gonna get that across and memorable to the listener? And
Yeah.
especially you, since we have to play these solos and whatnot kind of every night, maybe not to a T, but as close as possible, because
Framework.
yeah, the framework of it, right? So these things are going to be just recorded forever. This is it. So you have to almost get in the moment. What with Albert was saying earlier with that, but also at the same time too, find what's gonna also bring that specific part out. So like a lead player, those are the elements that I'm looking for when I'm constructing the solos for the record.
Okay. Do you ever think in terms of, okay, I recorded this solo. How am I going to be able to play this live? Because that's something I panic about.
Well, so how I usually do it is in patterns. So like I'm always like, okay, pattern 1, 2, 3, 4. If I can memorize all four of the patterns separately and then I can put them together, that's usually how my brain kind of works. I know it's a little strange. It's just that's the way my particular
It
brain
works for
works.
you.
So
It works for
yeah.
you.
And
Absolutely.
in, and if especially and Steve and Albert, you both know this with our catalogs of music here. If you have it, I would say around the 2 album mark. If you have more than 2 albums, then everything kind of starts to blend together, right? The
Yeah.
solos start to blend together, the riffs start to blend together, right? So it's almost, how are you going to memorize this again, right? That's always the trouble that I'm always having, and I don't know if you guys experience this,
Oh
you
yeah, at
know,
rehearsal,
bringing
yeah, at a rehearsal we can call a song, and somebody will think it's another song. They'll, that's happened to
Guilty.
me multiple times. I'm like, oh shoot, wrong song. I start the wrong riff. I think I've even done that live. If come to think of it, I don't know. But the guys just followed along and just went with it. Yeah, shit
It's like
happens.
when you get to the end of the song, well, that's not the one we were going to play, but boy, that sounded good.
and especially too with you guys being in multiple bands too. I'm sure that's happened where it's like, oh fuck, this isn't even the right song for this particular band. I don't know how you guys separate those two factions and whatnot, but
Exactly, and there are some musicians that are like in like 5, 6 bands, and I'm like in awe. I'm all like, how do you do that? I have problems remembering, one band stuff. It's like I can't even remember. I have to be honest, I sometimes have issues with remembering the riffs that I wrote, or I have to ask Juan, hey Juan, how did it go again? Luckily, he'll remember and re-educate me, so to speak.
Now I'm generally curious too with this point. How much do the drums play into how you guys construct your lead sections and whatnot? Do they play a part in the phrasings or the scales that you're using, or what do you try and lock onto that the drummer's kind of doing? Because I'm always of like the either the ride cymbal or the snare or the hi-hat. It's one of those three for me. So for you guys, what are you kind of locking onto when constructing your solos and hearing it and particularly on the drums?
You
You want
want
to
to go
go
ahead?
first, Steve?
I've got to sit and think about it.
Well, for me, to be honest, it's all about the groove of the drums. That'll make. I feel that'll make or break a solo for me. If I can't latch on because of my just ineptness, I just can't do it. Then it's on me, because a good drum pattern and a good riff are going to lay the foundation
Yeah.
for whatever you opt to do, whether you're going to try to shred or you're going to try to add some nice melodic lines. So yeah, and I'm
I
very
think
lucky to have Rob, because we've played for so many years together that we uh, yeah, I can't fathom trying to do with anybody else. I probably could, but it would be, I would have to like get used to it for a while. But with Rob, it's easy. The only, if a solo sucks, it's totally on me. It's not because of the drums or the riffs, because I wrote the riffs. They're my riffs, bitches.
kind of along the same things. I mean, I agree with everything Albert says about Rob, having played in I think 22 or 23 bands now with Rob. I'm kidding. It was only about 17. But no, he's got such a way of laying out parts. It's unlike any other drummer I've ever played with, where he can lay out a part like he's thinking about what the guitar player is going to do, if that makes sense. And it's amazing. Now, for example, if he's doing a blast beat or if he's doing a faster beat, I would like to play something a little bit more slow with more notes that are holding out and sustaining. But if he's playing something slow, then you can actually speed up and play, so you're countering. Otherwise, it's just way too much chaotic in if everything's going fast at that point in time. Does it make sense?
No, it does. I mean, because think of it this way: if the groove is at a moderate tempo, you have the
Mhm.
option to latch on, stay, or
Yeah.
put the speed on, and take it a little higher up, a little more crazier, and then bring it
Yeah.
back down. But if you're starting at 1, 2, 3, oh fuck! I mean,
Yeah.
the best thing to
It's
do is just what Tanner says: just chill, do some nice melodic stuff.
yeah. What do you think, Tanner?
I kind of want to ask another question if that's cool, because I'm just
All
generally
right.
curious with these things. You know, me and Steve are guitar player singers, right? So we probably have a different mindset of we're gonna have to sing this, then go into a guitar solo, right? But for you, Albert, you know, obviously you're not the singer for a band and whatnot. So I'm just really curious. It's like are you going to lay your trademark into this and be known that this is an Albert Gonzales solo? Does that make sense? It's like to where
Oh,
it's your voice right here. So that I'm just generally curious, what are some of the trademarks for your guitar solos and AKA your voice when it comes to
that's a
this?
good question. Analyzing, I would have to. Geez, I don't know. That's a good question. What would make an Albert Yeah, that's a damn. You got me. You stumped me. I've been stumped because I never pondered that. It's never. I mean, I never thought to analyze what makes the way I play, and the way it's going to sound on the record. I don't know. That's a good one. I guess that would be something you would have to ask my fellow musicians that I've jammed with, that I try to get their take on it. What is it that
Okay, well, we have
I mean,
one
and
here.
I'm still striving. I'm still striving to get a sound for myself. I mean, we all are, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
there are the great musicians that you hear just a few notes and you know who they are, you
Mhm.
know, and in all genres of music, not just hard rock, metal. I mean, they're there like so. It's something we all strive for.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got me, dude. I can't come up with something that would say, well, what is it that I do that because to be honest, this last album was like I said, I went in there just like, okay, whatever happens, happens, and I think I pretty much feel like I overplayed.
No, you
I
didn't.
overplayed
Interesting.
where
No.
but then again the Annihilation album was more, I think, more mellow and a lot more melodic for sure. I feel a lot more melodic. Where this one I just like I think I overplayed a lot, but it is what it is. Like I said, that was me, warts and all, during that moment in time, and
Wow.
so
My
and I'm
perspective.
happy with that. I'm happy with that because the next album or wherever the next thing I play, that's going to be right. That's going to be me, warts and all, and it'll probably be different, because I'll feel different. I may have different alcohol in me. Who knows?
Dude, I'll tell you what, I've got a totally opposite perspective. I thought on Annihilation you were a lot more wild and crazy, whereas on this one it felt to me like you were more focused. That's why I find it so interesting. This is where it gets interesting.
See that well, there you go. That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
you would have to ask somebody else because my perspective is I guess skewed because I think I overplayed.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it seemed like everything I'm learning brand new right now because of what you did was so good, and I'm thinking to myself, man, he must have really thought that all out, exactly what you were going to do, and it turns out you were winging it. Wow, I'm
No,
stunned.
I think you even Tanner. Did you not even help me out? You're all like, do something, Shanker. I forgot what you told Rob or something.
Me?
Yeah, wasn't it you who on the live stream that Rob happened to have? And I was having issues with this one part, and I think you suggested. I could have sworn it was you. Maybe I'm wrong, but somebody was suggesting something to try something, and I don't know. I thought it was you. Man, my bad.
Maybe. I can't remember that far back, sadly, right now. But, same question for you, Steve. I'm just generally curious what what you think your specific trademark is.
I don't know if I have one, to be perfectly honest with you. It because I focus so much more on rhythm guitar than I do on soloing that I mean, there's little stupid things that I do that I'm really conscious of the fact that I'll repeat them over and over again, and then I try and disguise and hide them so they don't sound like I'm repeating them. Unfortunately, I don't play enough solos that you notice them. Of course, I just gave away the whole ball of wax, but I've got a thing. I'm a big Gary Moore fan. And Gary had been known for holding out long sustaining notes. I mean, think about Parisian Walkways, where I think he held that note for 35 or 40 seconds. And there's something, okay, I'll give you a good example of this. There's a live version of Maiden playing Number of the Beast. And I think it's the Beast on the one where Flight 666, where they're on the plane. I don't remember what city they're in, but he's playing the solo. He gets up to a Gary Moore type note and just lets it hang for almost half the solo. But it's so perfect and beautiful. It's like that to me is a signature piece. And I mean, but we all know that solo that Dave's played for years. They're just little things. To me, it's always just there's going to be that note that you hold, that one note that really just reaches in and grabs your soul. Does that make sense? I'm following up everything with it. Does that make sense? I'm suddenly conscious of it.
Right. Well, I think us as guitar players and musicians are always kind of self-conscious at the end of the
Oh yeah.
day, no matter how confident we may seem. Um,
Oh yeah.
but I want to go off. I'm just gonna say it. So there's a part in I think it's A Violent End to Life, which is a song off of the Charting the Rotting Earth record,
Mhm.
and the solo riff. I didn't blatantly steal it from Anger's Art, but it was inspired
Oh,
by it because Anger's Art is to me has always been this band where some of the riffs are always like they're like thrills, like you do like thrills in your yeah he's on the phone
yeah,
with his
yeah.
lawyer.
I got my lawyer on the line to let him
Yeah,
know.
there you go. I'll pay you the $5 later. But so there's a but so with Ingers Art, you guys always do a lot of like thrills as I call them. So it's always like the Frank Marino, Ted Nugent thing where it's always like this in your
Yeah.
guys'
What's
riffs. I
Yeah,
don't
he,
know
he
what
does have this riff. And one of the let me see, where's my list of
it's
songs?
like. It's called like a trill, I think is what it is. But anyway, there's a part in it. And I took it from Anger's Art and applied it into this riff that we had and it just fits so well with the fucking thing. It was just like the perfect tail to the riff, and I
So
just love that.
we're all influencing each other. In other words, then
Yeah,
that's
that
outstanding.
so. But I've always meant to tell you that, Steve. Sorry about that.
Oh,
But
cool.
there
Thanks.
you go. So there, but with that, I'm always thinking of things like that to apply to certain things that are just going to make sense with the certain
Mhm.
moment in time as going back to what Albert was saying. And I
Yeah,
think I do that same thing with my solos and whatnot. If I'm doing like a melodic part where it's like I intentionally want the crowd to sing along with it. Like we have parts like that, and I do that
yeah,
intentionally
yeah,
to obviously bring the crowd in because when you're doing something so chaotic all the time, it's nice to have that contrast
yeah.
and melody attached to it. And
Case in point, balls to the wall, the octaves, da da da. I mean, gee, man,
Oh
tell
yeah.
me that that's a
Oh yeah.
killer. That's a killer little hook, man. It gets
Mhm.
everybody doing that, and incredible. So yeah, your point is extremely valid. Just
Absolutely.
but does Anger's Art do that a heck of a lot, or what are you guys' thinking when it comes to engaging the crowd in to your specific solos and whatnot, or maybe just a lead break or something like this?
I think it's more about a riff that gets like an earworm, gets stuck in your head. Because once you get that, or you get that vocal hook that just is stuck in somebody's head, I think it was Ted Nugent that said it years and years ago. Once you get that, you've got them, and it was one of the greatest quotes ever. But yeah, but like Albert was saying, the piece out of balls to the wall. If you can get anybody to sing along, that's one thing I love. I mean, you can sit here and laugh about some of these glammy shock rock kind of bands, and I don't even know if you call them that, but look at Wasp, for example. Every one of those choruses in the early days were sing along, and they just got stuck in your head. You walked out of a Wasp show singing, I Want to Be Somebody, not because you wanted to be somebody, but because the hook was so good.
yeah, yeah, I
And
agree. You would come out of the troubadour with
oh,
the
yeah.
in your ears with doused in fake blood. Yeah, I remember those. I remember those days.
Yeah.
If you
But
got
this,
lucky, you got a piece of raw meat to take home.
I don't know if I try and cook that, but that's a different story. Um, but it's all about that hook. I mean, if you've got something, I've actually seen people in some bands, some of the more say hardcore type bands that will actually steer away from things. I've actually been in one band where the guy said, "No, it's too melodic. We can't be this melodic because people will think we're musical," and it just stunned me. It's like, don't you want people to remember these songs? So you want to make it less memorable? How many records are we going to sell? And that kind of thought process is just weird to me.
Hell, how many records are you gonna make with that mentality too? So you always have to think of like, because you're putting yourself in the box, I guess is my
Yeah,
whole thing with it.
yeah.
But let's go to a perfect example of what you guys were saying, a chanty kind of thing. Let's go to Evil Dead because we keep mentioning some Evil Dead tracks. The title track to Annihilation of Civilization. What is the fucking thing that people always chant?
I would love.
Annihilation,
Mhm.
Yeah,
civilization, right?
yeah, the chorus. Yeah, yeah.
So with that, it's like, and there's probably a reason why I don't know if you guys play this song last or whatnot, but I'm sure it's still on the set every fucking show you guys
Oh
play.
yeah, it's our breaking the law.
Okay, well, but why is that?
Uh,
Anyway,
Why is that though?
I believe it's probably the best song I wrote as far as thrash. I don't know. So I don't know.
Not when you have gone shooting and
Oh
whatnot
shit, I
too.
forgot about that too.
But
I don't know.
but so can I kind of answer this and then maybe we
Yeah,
can
see
branch
that
off of
again.
this?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So there's two aspects to why I think this song was so it is a song you guys always play and it's always in the set list and it's always kind of last or towards the back end
It's
of your
always
guys'
last.
set list.
Yeah, 99.999. It's last. You got to leave them. You got to start. Who's you know what? Real quick, there was a phrase by Pete Thompson that said they only remember the beginning and the end the most.
Yep.
So start strong and end super strong, and you're gonna have everybody walking away happy. So
That's true.
Yeah.
I've always believed that. So, but anyways, I'm sorry. Go on, Tanner.
No, not at all. So there's two aspects I want to touch upon, right? We established that Annihilation, right, has that catchy chorus. It's got the annihilation, and you
Yeah.
can have the crowd sing along to it.
Yes.
And obviously you got the riffs to it too. Obviously that plays a huge part. But I also think having that music video plays a huge fucking part in it. Only because
I don't know. I
back
wasn't
in
in it.
well, hold on a second.
I'm
Let me
just
finish that. So, but back in those days, right?
Yeah.
That's all you had. So that's the only and when the internet got discovered and we started discovering your specific bands and whatnot, that was the first song we locked onto. Why? Because there's a music video attached to it. And then we heard the song afterwards. And then we started to chant the chorus, right? So
Yeah.
I think having all that does play a huge role. I mean, you mentioned Breaking the Law. Again, another music video song, another song with a catchy fucking chorus, right? Down, 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 down. There's not even a solo in it.
I
For
know.
God's sakes, right? So
That's true.
I think that plays a huge part in why certain songs are more memorable too, man. Especially if you have the visual aspect attached to it, and then you got the melody attached. And I mean, maybe I'm talking too much about it, but what are your guys' thoughts on this?
Let me jump in on that real quick. You're forgetting there's the sing along portion in the song, but there's also the octave chord. Because
Oh yeah.
it ties. You get the shout along. Here's the guitar part. Shout along. Here's the guitar part. It's perfect. It's a great song, Al. And I'm not just blowing smoke because I can.
Well, thank you. We get lucky. We get lucky sometimes, right?
So I think let's go back to can we even go to like the bare bones, Steve? And I know and I'm talking about the riff and whatnot, when you're writing a riff and whatnot, what are some of the notes that you are specifically looking for as a songwriter, guitar player?
Wow. Okay, this is going to get interesting here because I never actually sit down with a guitar and write a riff. What typically happens is I'll either be having a really lousy day at work or I'll be stuck in traffic. And I mean, I'll go through a dry spell where I can't write anything. And all of a sudden I'll get so angry about something. And I start hearing sounds in my head and they just become music. It becomes riffs. That's where it really comes from. So I literally have to come home. First of all, I have to sing them into my phone. Thank goodness for these things, because prior to that, they had to carry a little tape recorder around with you in case you got inspired. But sing it into the phone, then go home and try and figure out how to play it. So there's no real notes. I mean, after that, you figure out how the riff works, and then figure out, okay, what key is this best to play in? What can it be sung in? Whatever. But there's no real notes to speak of. Gosh, that's a good question. That's a great thought. Next.
But see, let me chime in since I'm coming from another band and jamming with you guys. The beauty is I get to play riffs that I would have never even thought of. Okay, I'm going to put this riff right here. I'm going to play these notes, and that's one thing about jamming with like many bands. That has to be one of the biggest pluses, that you're like, okay, I'm swimming in their pool, so to speak. And, I see what's going on. This is interesting. I'm set in my ways. This is the way I write. These are my comfort. This is what makes me feel like this is a good riff. But now I'm jamming with these guys and, all right, check this out. Okay. And that's what I get with Anger is Art. I really enjoy jamming with them because it's really different than how I write, and how I, you know.
Yeah. And what was interesting, along that same line there's a song we're working on for the new album that I was stuck on one particular riff that I couldn't stand in this song. I'm thinking, okay, I like everything about it except for the theme riff. And Albert's sitting on his couch. I've got the video on my phone here somewhere. Sitting on his couch. Hey, why don't you just play this? And he plays this piece. And then Eric pops in. No, then add this there. Song took a total left turn and went that direction and he brought his stamp into it. Now all of a sudden it's like, wow, it became a monster. So
Interesting. So now that you have the bare bones, let's I want to almost construct a song here without constructing a song, right? Just going
okay,
through the
here we
basics
go.
of kind of like
Sounds good.
how to construct a song, right? So you got the riff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you write another riff, and you can kind of put these together, or maybe you switch the riff behind the riff to where it's like, okay, now this sounds like a good chorus riff. This is how my brain works. So it's almost like this is a good catchy chorus riff. Okay, let's see where it branches off from there. How do you guys kind of construct your specific songs when writing the riffs and whatnot?
Wow.
Go ahead, Steve. Take
Okay.
it through Angry Art, and I'll take it through how I deal with writing.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that. It's interesting. It typically will start with that theme riff, like you're talking about. There's that riff that it's based on, that the song is based on. When it gets into a verse, I played with some bands. For example, when I was working with Jim Durkin with Dreams Damnation and Pagan War Machine, he liked to play the same riff, the theme riff, in through the verse and then work it right into the chorus. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, you're beating that riff to death. I would rather have something go different when the vocal comes in, just to be a little bit different and play off it. That way, when you revisit the theme riff, it stands out that much more to you. I like a pre-chorus into a chorus. Sometimes you just have a great chorus. If the chorus is better than the theme riff, but it's not as strong, you got a perfect song. If that makes sense. That's my 2 cents.
Cool. Well, in my case, I'll be perfectly honest. I've never written a song with the idea, this is chorus, this is verse, this is bridge. I've never thought in those terms when I write. It's always, I come up with a riff. If something else follows, if I'm still doing this, headbanging when I'm playing, if I still feel it inside me, then I know I'm on the right path. If I lose it or it just doesn't feel right, I'm not going to force it. But I've never, ever written in the sense of intro, verse, bridge, chorus, stuff like that. Never. And I think that's probably why I enjoy jamming with Steve, because it's all the elements are there. The elements that I've never thought of, how to construct a song, which is the proper way, pretty much. You need to have all these little parts sometimes where for me, it's just like, I need to feel it. If I'm still doing this from start to finish, then I know I've got a good little tune there, hopefully. And then with Rob, he's like my writing partner. We're bouncing ideas off, and I think I've only written just a handful of songs where I've come to rehearsal with everything, and that I think those were the ones that I was in the band, the death metal band called Rise. I think I walked in the studio rehearsal with 2 songs, and I think one of them was Shadow of Ruins, and I can't even remember the other one. But yeah, I showed them all. These are all the parts, and they took it as is, and I got lucky. But usually I like to have a writing partner, and that's Rob. But like I said, I don't use the terms like Steve does, and yeah, that's what I enjoy.
I'm wondering how much of being a singer guitar player plays in writing as opposed to being the guitar player. Because as a singer guitar player, I'm always thinking of other aspects. How am I going to lay the vocals on this? What are the cadences going to be? Yes. So I'm always thinking in terms of that. That's just how I'm writing. So when me and Big Cat are writing, essentially the riffs and the parts and whatnot, it's like, that's why I choose certain riffs as the verse or chorus, pre-chorus, because I'm like, okay, I could say a lot here. I don't have to say very much here. Then I can construct the song. Oh, there's a break here, So especially when you're playing live, you need to have those breaks. I think the breaks are the most important parts
Yeah.
to when
Yeah.
constructing music and whatnot. So, Steve,
And
go ahead.
those breaks, I'm sorry, real quick, those breaks are so important in life because you could be on the edge of just falling off the cliff. But once you get to that break and if everybody stops and starts at the same time after the breaks, oh man, they're musical geniuses. They were so tight they were so freaking tight. That's a good crutch to have those
Smoke
breaks.
and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors, I'm telling you. Or in a situation like that where those little breaks come up, I'm about to drop my pick. I can feel it slipping out of my fingers. It's like, I can regrip, and you're right
Right.
back to it.
Or,
There you go.
Yeah.
you could feel your wrists giving out. Okay, I need to
Oh
break,
gosh.
and
And,
Yeah.
so
oh gosh, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, no, you're right. You're hitting on a good point there, Tanner. Is that you're thinking about vocal as well as guitar, so you're thinking about two different aspects of the song as opposed to a single aspect. So yeah, I think along that same thing, you've got to think about, okay, how do I sell this from this standpoint, and then how do I sell it as a singer, and then how do I sell it as a guitar player, or vice versa? That's weird. It's and then can I play and sing this at the same time? I mean, that's walking and chewing gum. That's, man, oh man. That's a different animal altogether.
sure. But and then once you have the riffs constructed, right? You got the solo section all picked out, then you kind of bring it to the band. And I'm just kind of curious, how do you know what kind of beats are going to go along with it? Do you just entrust it in that specific said drummer, or do you kind of just try a bunch of different things and say like, oh, this could work, or let's impose this kind of stuff, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then see if it works that way?
That's a good question. Steve, let me ask you that. Yeah, let me expand on when you come up with a riff, are you ready with the idea of a drum beat when you showcase it to Rob?
9 times out of 10, yes.
Okay. See, I'm the opposite.
Largely,
I'm oblivious. I mean, I know I just have my foot when I write a riff. I have my tempo, my foot that keeps my time, and then
yeah,
I'll show it. Yeah, and then Rob will either play whatever he wants to on top. But
of
yeah,
course.
okay. So
Yeah,
that's
and
cool.
it's
That's cool.
one thing I will say is
Pretty
9
rad.
times out of 10, yes, but I'm not married to it either. I mean, if he
But
sees
you have
something,
an idea though. But you have
yeah,
your okay. That's cool. See, and I think that's freaking awesome because like you guys are vocalists, so you guys will be writing riffs, songs with the most important thing, vocal lines or where you want to sing and where you don't, and that's an aspect that unfortunately I don't have. And again, you have the the writing style of this drum style, this beat is pretty much what I'm thinking when I'm writing this riff. That's
mhm.
another thing. So goddamn, man, I don't know how in the fuck I do it then because that just I don't even think of that shit, dude. I'm just writing riffs, so fuck.
Oh, that's crazy.
Interesting. But it's interesting. So when you bring, let me ask you this, Albert. So have you played with just singers and guitar player singers, or bass player singers, or just singers when you're writing when you've been in these bands and whatnot?
All three. I've had bass player singers, I have guitar singers and just singers. So
So let me ask you this: how different is it when you bring a song into that rehearsal space with the bass player singer, or just the singer, or now in Steve's case, the guitar player singer? Do you kind of get some, not some, I would say some kickback on some of it, where it's like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Let's kind of switch these riffs up and make a little bit more sense for me playing and singing it, or and then I'm assuming with the singer, he can probably just go in
yeah.
on whatever you're bringing to them and
Yeah.
whatnot.
So far up to this point, when I do bring and showcase riffs, I try to bring my A game. So I'm not going to bring anything that I think isn't worthy. So if they like the riff, they're going to have to work around it. That's just the bottom line.
I love it.
If
Yeah.
because like I vote, the phrase is riffs are king. Everything else is whatever. So if I bring just the best possible riffs that that I have in me, and the guys like it, they'll work around it. Vocals will be written somewhere in there, and then we'll figure out if it works or not. But yeah, I've never had anybody say, "Man, I can't sing over that." Well, then don't. Just let the riff breathe. You know? Yeah, I've
Well,
never had that happen.
that's actually very true. Just let the riff breathe. You can actually get
Yeah.
up there. You can actually carry out one word, let it ring for a bit. You can do 3 words over a 3 words 4 times around. So you're talking about 12 words in a verse, and let the riff take everything over. And it works. It can work. I would say this from a vocalist perspective, and Tanner can probably agree with this. It's like a singer cannot be set in stone. It's like, no, it's this way or no way. And that's any instrument for that matter. You've got to realize, you got to admit when something's working and when something's not working.
Yeah.
I like being wrong when it comes to that, though. I like when I'm working with a partner and whatnot. Like, I like when he's right or he or she is right and I'm wrong, because then I'm like, fuck, you know what? I wish. Then it's like a matter of, fuck, I wish I wrote that.
I wish
Even though you kind of did write that, right? You were there in the moment writing it, but it's like, fuck, that's a great idea. I wish I came up with it, you know?
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. That's the learning process.
Well, yeah, but then how much of your ego do you have to put aside
All of it.
for the writing process? Because that's the other like push and pull thing when it comes to songwriting.
That's a topic unto itself. First of all, why would I want to hang around with anybody that has an ego? Why would I even want to play with anybody who has an ego? You know, it would just be so detrimental to the vibe and the groove of the band. I mean, I don't know if I could stomach that.
Well, I'm just going to ruin it for you, because everybody has an ego. So it's impossible for you to get away from it. It's just, it is what it is. But
yeah,
but we can, but as humans, you should be able to rein it into where it's not going to implode the band,
correct,
you know, so to speak. So yeah, no, we all have our feelings, and oh, they don't like my riff. Oh, that sucks. I'm going to go home. This is my mic stand. But,
so going off of what Steve said, though, you can't be married to your riff. That's the one thing that I've learned from being in a fucking band. It's like, okay, these riffs are good, but they can always be better.
oh yeah, because you hear it a certain way. You wrote it. It came out of you a certain way, but you know, the other cats in the band, they're like, whoa, that just inspired me. I hear this now. Do this to it instead. Oh no, that's the beauty of having a great band with a bunch of great brothers, you know, in your band that are like, they're, because they don't want it. They don't want the riff to fail. They don't want the band to fail. So they're not going to steer you in the wrong direction. So, you know, cut your ego. They're not there to ruin the band, ruin the riff, ruin the song. They're there to enhance it, make it better. Right. So
I agree.
You know, it's funny talking about ego there. One thing you've got to say is, if you've got a 3 or a 4 other members, whatever it might be, 5 other members, whatever it might be, you've got to be willing to accept if nobody likes it. It doesn't mean you suck. It means this one doesn't work.
Right. At the moment. Yeah. You know, we can always come back to it, tweak it. That's what we've always said. If it doesn't make it, then, you know, let's just put it aside. We'll come back in.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
I love that. And I'm kind of going off of this and where, you know, who's the greatest riff writer in the world, right? Does anybody know? It'd be Tony Iommi for me. So Tony Iommi is like,
Geezer came up with some of the riffs too, did he not? Didn't Geezer come up with
the lyrics? But so Tony Iommi, to me, he's a riff master. Like, he literally has tapes of unreleased riffs. But the reason why he doesn't ever go back to them is because he I think what he said is, well, if it wasn't good enough to be, you know, be used or whatever, it's like, I got a better riff already. So that's how I'm just saying. So sometimes you don't even get to go back to the riff.
No, because you've improved. Your ear has matured. You've taken. Well, excuse me. We'll put it this way: you've taken your ears to other directions because you've been writing all these riffs all these years. If you go back to some of your to your younger little baby riffs, whatever you want to call them, you can mature them because your ear has gone in these other directions. I bet you there's tons of potential in these riff tapes that you're talking about, and I mean, they're probably masterpieces because of.
I'm not talking me. I'm just talking for Tony Iommi. That's
no. Of course, no. That's what I'm saying, because you're saying he doesn't care to go back and revisit, and that's a shame because, like I said, everything he's written up to this time, his ear has developed, taken different paths, so to speak. That if he heard these other riffs, he could incorporate that. I mean, I would be like all over that. Matter of fact, I do enjoy stumbling upon an old little cassette of riffs, and I'll listen to them, and I'm all like, oh shoot, okay, I see where I was back then. I can take those 3 notes, even though it's a 12-note riff, whatever. There are 3 good notes there that I'm going to bring with me to the future, so to speak. So wow. I don't know. What do you think, Tanner? Could you stomach some listening to your older riffs?
Well, see, so yeah, it depends. It just depends on it because, like, so I'm gonna give you a case in point scenario here. This year will mark the 10-year anniversary of one of my first ever record, Maleficent, and I've never experienced a 10-year anniversary on one of my records.
Mm.
So it's a trip to go back to it and be like, oh, these still hold up for me personally, right? Because I knew where I was when I wrote it and recorded it and whatnot. So, and then some of these demo stuff, it's like, oh man, I see why this didn't make the album. There's a couple. I just have it in my head for some reason when it comes to why certain things make records and why certain things don't. So these baby riffs that you're talking about, they're fun to listen to, but I don't think it'd be fun to bring them in unless I revamped them heavily.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You would go back and tweak them, so to speak. I mean, if you wanted to, if it was, if you were so inclined to do, you would, go back and tweak these unheard demos of yours or riffs. I mean, you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
You may find a diamond in the rough, right?
Absolutely. Or it's interesting how you can go back to some of these old recordings, old riff tapes and whatever, and you can hear something and realize, wow, how did I let that one get away? This one sounds like it would be good now. And then you never want to admit to
a transition.
Get away. Yeah.
It could be a simple transition that you really dug. It could be the combination of whoever played during the drums and the feel. You're like, oh shoot, that groove is fucking badass.
Yeah.
I want to incorporate that in one of the new songs, You never know what you could find. I'm not saying that we're going to go back and play a complete song from our past because obviously,
everybody moves on.
If they didn't make it onto a vinyl for a reason, but there's probably a few diamonds in there.
Have you ever had a riff though that you were playing and somebody else overheard it and said we could use that? Because I've yet to do that where like somebody from my specific band in question, I would be playing a riff or something and somebody would be like, we need to use that now. And here's how we're going to use it. Have you ever had something like that happen in the number of years that you guys have?
Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say close. It's like, oh, hey, why didn't the reaction is typically, why didn't we ever take a look at this back in the day? Let's do this now. But nothing that was like a light shining from heaven moment. Like, oh my gosh, where has this been for our entire? It was never like that. It was always, well, hey, we should have been doing this a while ago.
Interesting.
In my case, like I will never play a riff with volume unless I want them to hear it. Even if it's like everybody's warming up and stuff, if I'm just wanting to play a riff, usually in my case, if I play anything with volume, it's like, eventually, guys, I'm going to show you this today, or, I want your feedback. But I've never, well, no, take that back. I mean, you doodle around, you fart around on something that you really, and that, what, that does happen. Now that I think about it, where they're all like, hey, what was that? And I'm like, shit, I don't know. Let's try to remember what it was. Because you're just warming up, just doing something, and one of the band members digs it, and we're all like, okay. But 9 out of 10 times, anything that I'm gonna play, that I play during warm up or whatever, is something I really want to show the guys. But I wish I had that moment where like somebody's out, like it would be like those actresses. I want that girl, I want that actor in my movie type shit. That'd be awesome if somebody said, hey, I want that riff. Here's 10 grand.
Wow.
Albert, I got to ask you this because I've noticed your style and Steve's style are almost completely different. I would say you're like the melodic guy. Even your riffs in Evil Dead, they're very melodic. They're very like almost thought out, and I've just always been curious where the melodicism comes from when writing riffs, and maybe you'd be a good
in general, huh?
Yeah,
that's a good one. You have to ponder that. Like, well, I mean, oh, geez.
Do you think of a band at first that you're trying to emulate, and then?
No, I've never done that.
Okay.
But I mean, we're all influenced. because we've listened to music all our lives, and that creeps in for sure. As a matter of fact, I'll come up with a riff, and somebody will say, "Hey, that reminds me of so and so," and they'll play it. I'm all like, "Oh, son of a bitch!" But when it comes to writing riffs, yeah, we all have our style. We all have what we think sounds good or what makes us feel good when we play. And uh, I think that's the beauty of individuality. You know,
Yeah.
what makes me feel good when I write is totally different than anybody. You know, to a certain degree, it's different than other people. And just like Steve, writing style is totally different, and that's why I enjoy playing them. I enjoy playing the tunes. It's something, like I said, I wouldn't have written that riff. I wouldn't have been in that position that on the fretboard playing, these riffs and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is why we have so many subgenres? Because we have so many,
Hmm.
like, we have so many, and I'm going to go back to what you had said, whereas it's like, there's only one individual that's going to feel that specific way. And so I think that's where all the subgenres kind of come from. It's like, I want to play thrash because that's what makes me tick, right?
Yeah,
Or death metal because that's what makes me tick, or black metal because that's what makes me tick. So I think that's always played a part for in as far as my thought process goes, why we have so many subgenres in metal specifically, because we can never just be satisfied with one specific type,
that's true.
you know.
That's true. Yeah, and and that's the beauty of the branches of the tree of metal.
Yes.
It's like goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's really no wrong. I mean, the backlash. I get the backlash against new metal. I'm not a fan of new metal, but the backlash I thought was over. There's nothing wrong with it. It appeals to a whole different audience, and if they're being entertained, and if it makes their, I mean, what was that big festival they just announced that's coming up here this summer with like the 23 or 25 bands or something like that, and they're all 90s bands, like an emo fest or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
when we were friends or something like
So when we
that,
were
or
young, it might have been when we were young, but yeah. But the point being is that, I mean, I'm not a fan of. And I looked at that. I don't even. I think I recognized one of the band names, but I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, there is a dedicated fan base for this, and people are going to pay $250 a pop to go there because it meant something to them and still does mean something to them. There's no wrong answer, and there's a lot of a. I don't get it. There's like a metal purity thing that bothers me, and it's like, if you sound too modern. I hear that from time to time, and that's one of the beauties of being with Anger is Art as opposed to one of the other bands, because it's like, well, we have better amplifiers now, and recording techniques are much better, and I actually learned how to play and sing, so it's going to sound different than it did in 1983 or 1984 when I had no idea what I was doing. Yes, I get the innocence and the purity of that, but you can't go back and you can't go to a brain surgeon and say, okay, forget how to do brain surgery and just put band-aids on boo-boos. It's just not going to happen.
I'm,
Wow.
I'm curious to know, because the fest that you brought up, Steve, was my generation. It was popular when I was like a teenager.
Sure.
Was
Sure.
the Atreyus of the world. I
Yeah.
think that was,
Oh
well, so
yeah,
those kind of bands. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Not at all.
I back then it didn't represent metal to me. That's why that's why I started the specific band that I started. But I also didn't. I mean, I'm harsh on that that metalcore genre of music, but that's only because it was so rampant and it
Yeah.
just didn't appeal to me. Like, that was not what I wanted to see
Mhm.
live. Right? But I also know too that there's a huge fan base towards that, and God bless them. If
Yeah.
you like that stuff, I always think that it's important to like any type of music that you're into, because it branches off into so many different things. Like, you can now get into the bands I'm into, and the Metallicas, maybe the Madross, the Angers Arts, the Warbringers of the world. Maybe that can branch into that. So I
Mhm.
always felt, with instead of being an elitist and having the mentality of, oh, you like you somehow, I'm denigrating you because the bands I like are far superior. Like, I don't have that. that's a lot of
Yeah.
people's opinions of that, and I think we need to be more kind of inclusive. I've always said this, and I sound like a broken record saying it again, but it's so true. Where we need to be nurturing and bringing more people into into this style of music. So if you see a kid wearing a Marilyn Manson shirt or any of these metalcore shirts, maybe they'll like a band from that specific, maybe a thrash band or whatnot that sounds
Sure.
sort of like a
Sure.
Atreyu or something, and get them into that specific style. Because guess what? It's like 9 times out of 10, it'll probably happen that way, right?
Yeah.
They're not
Sure.
only gonna like it, we're not only gonna like metalcore or death metal or thrash metal, you know. For God's sakes, I'm into jazz, I'm into
Yeah.
prog, I'm into all these different kinds of music. So I think I can't be the only one like this. There's no possible way. Being a musician myself too, though, the average fan probably likes so many different types of music.
But will they admit it in public?
No,
That's see, no, that's the sad part because technically we're all from the same orchard. It's just we're all
Yes.
different. We're all different trees sprouting different fruit, but we're all in the same orchard.
Mhm.
That's why I look at it.
Yeah.
And hey, a fan walks by, he picks from this tree, thrash, takes a chunk, enjoys it, goes back to his grindcore, whatever, or new metal. But we're
Yeah.
all in. It's all in the same orchard.
Yeah. Yeah.
and why can't we exist in the same orchard though? Why do we feel like we have to um kind of segregate ourselves? Is it the ego? Is it the ego thing? Is it the I
I'm
maybe
cooler than you. It's the I'm cooler than you vibe.
Right.
That's
And we're
that's
tribal.
I think that's it. I'm cooler because I listen to this style of music,
Yeah.
and you're listening to that, and everybody likes that more. But I'm still cooler than you because I'm so different. I don't know.
Yeah. It goes back to tribalism. It's just, people will, this is what my tribe does. We do this, and everybody down the street does it differently. And it can't be that. Yes, everybody's going to be different, but you've all got to show up at the same table and eat together, don't you? How did I work food into this? I don't know.
well because Albert was mentioning fruit and whatnot, but
Yeah.
That's where it started. There you go.
I'm just kind of curious. Do you think that's been a huge kind of negative to our style of music? Maybe that, like, metal should be nurturing and encompassing and grow together rather than have this almost like pompous attitude where I'm
Mhm.
better than you. I don't think people want to get into a style of music where they're being told that they're nothing and we're better than them.
Right.
Do you know what I
Right.
mean? I wouldn't want to be in a style of music or get into a new style of music if that was the mentality.
Yeah, I agree that would be it would be difficult for somebody to even admit. You don't want to admit that. Hey, I like
Well,
this band.
I will cast the first stone. I will admit that I was like that, and
Yeah,
after just so many years of getting sick and tired of seeing that,
Mhm.
I've changed my tune, and I'm hopefully gonna inspire. We're gonna inspire everybody else to do that too, right? That it always starts with one, right? Isn't that what they always say?
right. And yeah, exactly.
Dude, you just hit it on the head. You just hit it on the head there. I think about a couple of bands that I absolutely warred against, and I would not listen to them no matter what. And I realized I missed out. Two of them, and say what you will, is Duran Duran and Depeche Mode. And it's like now I look back from a songwriter's perspective and go, my gosh, that stuff is genius.
Well,
It's
there
just
you
it was
go.
written. The hooks are so good. How can you? Okay, then you put some nice distorted guitar on top of it, and everything's beautiful. But the songs are so good. And why was I so narrow minded? Why? Because I was tribal.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you guys again for doing this with me.
This was
Hopefully, we
cool.
could do a lot more of these, and just talk music because that's what we love is music, right? But before we get off of here, tell our listeners what you guys are up to next and where they can find anything Anger's Art related, Evil Dead related, whatever it is you want to promote. So go ahead.
You want to talk about Evil Dead first, there, Albert?
No, because I really don't know that much. I'm no, no, I'm not.
No, it's not a joke. I mean, we're kind of in the same boat. Just this.
Yeah, I'm last usually. Yeah, I don't remember, and I don't.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I'm the worst person to ask about what's going down with Evil Dead when it comes to the future. But I know with Anger's Art, working on an album. Go ahead, Steve. I just
Yeah,
segued.
yeah. No, here's we opened the show talking about everybody battling COVID. I don't want to say anything to embarrass anybody, but we had one guy who was sick for quite a few weeks, and that shut down the recording process. As soon as he got well, then Christmas rolled around, and that shut everything down. As soon as that happened, then I was exposed to somebody. I had to quarantine for a week. As soon as that was done, we were all set. We were all going to go over and record, myself, Eric, and we were going to go meet over with Ron and start working on some tracking. And we're literally an hour away from leaving. I get a text message that says, "Don't leave your house." I said, "What's up?" I called him back and said, "Dude, I just found out I was exposed yesterday." He says, "Now I got to go to a quarantine." Right. So he goes to a quarantine. And as soon as he gets out, I go back into a quarantine. Right. So that was last week. And I get out of quarantine. And no sooner did that happen than Albert reaches out to me and says, "Hey, dude," he says, "I'm quarantining right now." I said, "Crap." Everything we're trying to do. This is amazing. I mean, Albert Tanner, you told me a long time ago one of the things you liked about the band was the fact we put an album out every 2 years. And time is going by, and it's like, this is so completely out of our control. Everything's completely out of our control. We were supposed to play in Albuquerque this Saturday, had to cancel it because of everybody being quarantined. And just the threat of this, you start to realize that so much of it is out of your control. The best thing about it is we've been able to revisit all these songs and fine tune them. And we're due to go in and actually track tomorrow. I'm scared to look at my phone tomorrow.
Well, I think that it's obviously we're all looking forward to having new music and whatnot, but there's not really a priority
Correct.
for it either. You got to kind of admit that and kind of take a step back on.
Absolutely.
And when I said every 2 years, it's because music kind of was the priority to album tour. Now it's more of like getting healthy,
Yeah.
and
Staying healthy.
so that we can do album tour. So we're in this almost mode right now where we're almost out of it, thank God,
Yeah.
but we're still in that mode to where we need to just get healthy, and that's the main focus. I think
Yeah.
this whole thing has shifted our focus onto what's really important,
Very
which is
true. Very true.
our family and health. To me, are the
Yeah.
two most important things. Like I always tell my guys, family and health are the most important. So anything else outside of that, so the band can be put on hold, right,
Of
until
course.
this thing happens. So
Yeah, family always has to come first. I mean, I can tell you, I'm sure we've all done it, but where you put family on the back burner to go to a worthless rehearsal, a rehearsal for nothing. You got no shows coming up, but we got to practice, and it can't do that. Your family has to be number one.
Yep.
First and foremost. And one thing I've really found, and I'm sure you guys probably agree, is that you start to really appreciate your bandmates more in a time like this. It's like, dang, let's get together. Let's just meet up at some restaurant, someplace. Let's break some bread. Let's have some conversation, have some laughs, and enjoy each other as human beings.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to there's a task that we need to, the task is always going to be there. But let's remember the good things, and the good things are the people. So
the relationship should always come first. So, well, guys, thank you very much again for coming on. Make sure, obviously, to go check out Anger's Art. I think you gentlemen have a band camp, hopefully.
we do.
I don't know, not sure on what record label you guys are signed to as of this point.
It's a secret at this point, but I think you know the people real well.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And
Well,
shh.
well, so obviously you can go pick up Anger's Art merch there. And gentlemen, I want to thank you guys seriously for giving me a few minutes of your time, and hopefully this won't be the last time. So
Yeah,
Thank you. So yeah, this was nice.
Yeah, it's different. Like I said, a different topic, but it's something that we can actually hit on. And I think people that watch can actually maybe learn something, go, hey, this is something I want to talk to Tanner about. And who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows?
And,
We'll
and I
see.
want to do more and more and more of these too. So,
Yeah.
like I said, let's get you back on here and do more of them.
Awesome.
But for another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys, we're out of here. Cheers.